The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has actually urged NNPCL's Group CEO, Mele Kyari, to account for 825 billion naira and $2.5 billion allocated for refinery rehabilitation and other oil revenues. This follows findings in a 2021 Auditor-General report and SERAP's November 2024 audit highlighting financial discrepancies, including unaccounted deductions from crude oil sales between 2020 and 2021. So this morning, Temitope Kolade, who is a senior manager, oil, gas and power at Anderson, Nigeria, joins me to talk about this. Can you please unmute your device, Temitope? Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so we're talking about 825 billion naira, $2.5 billion. And these are just the ones that we know as information in the public domain. But this is not the first time that NNPCL would be accused of not being transparent and accountable. So what's your view on this?
Well, it is what it is. I suspect that, just like you've said, it's not a new thing within the Nigerian system where sometimes you find that monies are not accounted for the way they should be accounted for. Unfortunately, what we've had in the recent past is where you have people who should be acting in the interest of the public, but they think that they're acting in their own interest because the public is not necessarily responsible for getting them into those positions and have not been able to fire them. And so they don't really see themselves as stewards for the people, which is why you find issues around non-transparency, as it were, and non-accountability to the people. These are taxpayers' money, we would say, and what the Auditor-General has said is not necessarily that they have stolen the funds. It's just saying that we can't have the real traces to those funds. We want to see support documents. We want to be sure that there is no misappropriation. And I think it's only fair for the NNPCL to clear its name and say, hey, this is what we use the money for. This is how it was done. Of course, there are some infractions against what the law speculates and specifies as to how things should be done, where this money should be paid to, and whether deductions should not be done at source, which, NNPC has done against those specific guidelines. And so it's only responsible for the NNPCL to make it very clear that this is what we have done with the monies, and then we want to set the record straight.
Okay, so these funds were actually deducted from the sales and royalties of crude oil and gas, with others withdrawn from the sinking fund account. Now, the question is, Temitope, could these funds have been deducted without the knowledge and close supervision of the man in charge, that is Mele Kyari? Because most times when these things or these accusations come up, most times it's always exonerated from them.
Well, I would think that that's practically impossible. And even when you say that it's possible for whatever reason, in the long run, we'll say that the buck stops at the desk of the CEO, right? So it only means that the CEO trusts everyone who works with him and that he can speak for them, he can vouch for them. And if he doesn't look into what they have done, it then means that he's not really doing what he ought to do. So I doubt there is any way that the GCU of the NNPCL would exonerate himself by saying that he doesn't know about this. Really, that's what leadership is about. You've got to accept everything. When the company is doing well, you accept it. And when there are infractions, you've got to accept it and be able to defend whatever has happened and see how you'll maybe make things
hello, Kolade. Okay, I think we just lost communication with Temitope Kolade right there. Can you hear me? All right, so we'll try as much as possible to establish reconnection with Temitope Kolade, even as he continues to chronicle the issue around the NNPCL and, of course, what Mele Kyari has done as the GCO of this particular company. Okay, Temitope, I'm told that you were back. So, of course, let's look at another talking point, and that is the oil revenue. Now, NNPCL had been accused of not remitting accruals into government coffers, not making expenditures public, and NNPCL being broke at some point then shortly after it declared profits. A lot of people are asking the questions, is the company itself being poorly managed by Mele Kyari?
Well, it appears that we want to turn everything into the into the hands of the GMD. But I think that in the long run, when you think about the NNPCL, we've got to look at its structure. The structure of the NNPCL is such that it's owned by the federal government of Nigeria, and that's true. The Ministry of Petroleum Incorporated and the Ministry of Finance Incorporated at the moment, even though sometimes in 2021 we had the PIA that then tried to let us know that, yeah, we're going to restructure this company and we're going to have it as a private limited company. But largely, that company is owned by the Federation and the federal government. So what does that mean to us? I think that if we've got to look at it more critically, we shouldn't stop everything at the table of the GMD of the NNPCL. We've got to look at it from the angle of his responsibility for the, taking the responsibility from who appoints him and then whoever he reports to. He doesn't work by himself in the long run. And so everyone has got to take ownership of this company, as it were, at the moment, the judiciary, the legislators, as well as the presidency, the executive, right? Because in the long run, he's not acting just for himself as much as we might like to think that way. Just like you see every other company out there. Yeah, sometimes as powerful as the MDs of very big companies they've got shareholders who can say to them, this is how we want this company to be run, and we're going to hold you accountable. So in the long run, it's really by holding them accountable. I think SERAP is doing a good job by asking for some transparency with respect to this missing or not well accounted for funds, right? And so we expect that the judiciary would also do what it ought to do by the time, say, NNPCL doesn't respond the way it should respond and SERAP goes to court, right? We should expect that the judiciary would do what it ought to do by ensuring that they call the right persons to question regarding what NNPC is doing and what it should do. So really, I wouldn't leave everything to the hands of the MD of the NNPCL. I would think that every Nigerian should be asking questions as to what needs to be done and how things should be done right in line with the laws.
So this actually brings me to the question around the president being the petroleum minister. You would recall that the past president, Muhammadu Buhari, was the minister of petroleum, so to speak, of the petroleum industry, same as this current, of course, president, that is Bola Tinubu. And there have been questions around if these portfolios should be separated to actually deal with issues around undue interference. So if I'm inferring from what you've said now, could it be that that portfolio, that merging of that portfolio could have been the reason why we are not seeing accountability in the NNPCL?
Well, we may not be able to blame it on that factor alone. And indeed, there are good sides of having the two portfolio in the hands of one and same person. And of course, there are downsides as well. So you might think about it from the point of trust. The president may say, this is really the cash cow for the country. And I do not have someone I trust so well enough to hand all of this over to. So I want to have an oversight over this. And again, going from more like what we've seen in the past, right? During President Obasanjo's time, at some point, he was also the Minister of Petroleum, right? The past President Muhammadu Buhari did the same. So it's more like precedents have been set. And so it only sounds nice to align with these and continue in that way. especially if the president thinks that I do not trust someone enough. But again, it could also mean that the president will not have enough time to devote into the affairs of that ministry and look at what exactly is happening. For the real, based on facts and figures and everything, looking at the details, because the work of the president alone, it's a lot of work for him to do, just to say the least, when he then have to combine it with the responsibility of the Minister of Petroleum. So there are downsides to it, and there could be some upsides as well. So it's really a case of the president taking that decision and saying, this is how I think I want to drive what happens with respect to policies, with respect to implementations of those policies for this industry. And because I know that this industry is this sector is very important and relevant to the sustainability of the country in itself. So I want to have direct oversight over it. And really, it's about the president taking responsibility for whatever happens within that sector and driving it the way he expects to do it and the way he wants it done in the long run.
Okay, let's now look at the crude for loan obligations. Now, with the rise in domestic refining capacity, how critical is it for NNPCL to now balance its crude oil exports and local refining needs?
Well, that's a challenge, and you'd agree with me with there's several loan agreements, forward sales that NNPCL has done. I think the only way to balancing the act really is to say, how much do we continue to produce, right? Are we able to deal with all of the issues that we have grappled with in the past with respect to production volumes? And if we are able to do that, if we ramp up our production volumes to a reasonable level, then we are able to meet our commitment with respect to those loan arrangements and those forward sales. And then we'll begin to also see how much we can push into our refineries on the local front. But really and truly, there is really not so much that can be done aside from ensuring that we produce more. And just to also add that the situation where we have to import crude is not essentially something out of the blues or something that is completely out of the ordinary, because we see this also happen in some countries. In the long run, what we want to balance is really the importation with the export, and to ensure that we are net exporters and we can help that we can ensure that that helps our balance of payment, that improves our sort of foreign exchange position as a country as well. But really, I think the best way to deal with that issue, to tackle that issue, is to increase our production as a country.
Okay, all right, that's noted. Temitope Kolade, Senior Manager, Oil, Gas and Power at Anderson, Nigeria. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thanks for